So just this past weekend, Zach Kreger's sophomore film Weapons was released in theaters. And for those of you who don't know, Zach Kreger is the director behind Barbarian, which is one of my favorite horror movies of the last 10 years, if not of all time. I think Barbarian is great. It's super inventive, it's super creative, it's really creepy and off-putting. And so when this new movie of his was coming out, I I didn't really have any expectations, but I was hoping it was going to be really good because I love Barbarian so much. And I have to say, after watching it, it is nowhere near the quality, it's nowhere near the top of my list. I thought Weapons was just mediocre, and here's why. So first, let me start off with a bunch of good things I thought about the movie. Firstly, the acting is great. Julia Gardner, Josh Brolin, the guy that plays Han Solo, I forget his name off the top of my head. All of them did a great job in their roles, and I thought that was a standout for the film because they all executed their roles perfectly. I enjoyed their characters. I thought they were interesting, and I thought where the story was going was interesting for their characters. And then even though I thought the ending was really flat, I still enjoyed the performances overall. Now, I also really enjoyed the horror elements of this film. And that's part of the biggest disappointment for me is that the horror elements were so great, but this movie was very tonally inconsistent. So there's a lot of horror, but then there's a lot of comedic bits and a lot of more dark comedy stuff in there. A lot more than I was expecting. And so this movie feels very pieced together in terms of tone because it doesn't feel like it's one consistent thing throughout. And the best parts of the movie were the horror aspects, and we didn't get as many of those as I wish we did. Now, finally, I will say the build-up for this movie in the first hour, maybe hour and a half or so, is interesting, and it does keep you on the edge of your seat for a little bit of it. I think doing the multiple perspectives is an interesting concept in theory, but doing it in the actual film and executing it just means that we're not really progressing through the story because we're just seeing the same events play out over and over again, just with different perspectives. So overall, I didn't fully love that, but for a majority of the first half or first two-thirds of the film, it was very interesting and kept my attention. Now, where this movie really falls apart for me is in the premise and in the ending. And I am going to talk about spoilers here, so if you don't want any spoilers, skip to the timestamp here. And with that said, let's begin. So this movie ends very flat for me. I think the whole aspect of the final kid's aunt being like some sort of witch slash like vampire, I just think it didn't work very well. I thought the reason for having the kids in the basement was never explained. The reason why she's doing any of this was never explained. The reason how it would help her is never explained. And the movie just ends on a very unsatisfying note because we find out how all these things are happening, how this hypnotism is happening, how these kids all disappeared, and then all of a sudden, bang, the movie's over and we never got an explanation for any of it. So while it was interesting trying to figure out how it was happening, once we found out, there was nowhere to go in the film because they never actually told us anything about why it was happening. Another thing I really didn't like about this film was that some of the horror aspects of it, like the jump scares and the creepy like clown face like moments, didn't really fit because there was not really a reason for them. They were more kind of there just to be scary jump scares and there to just kind of shock you, but they weren't actually there to serve any purpose in the film. And I don't personally like when horror films just use jump scares for the sake of using jump scares. Another thing about this film that was a little bit weird to me was that they built up this whole thing about it being 2:17 in the morning, and they did it up for all the promotional posters. They made a big deal of it at the beginning of the movie, and then in the movie it has literal no significance at all. 2:17 is just a random time that they picked because that's when the woman decided that she wanted to start her mass hypnosis. That's literally the only thing in the entire movie. So I feel like we're kind of being misled a little bit because there just was no significance to that at all. So it really felt out of place. Overall, Weapons has a lot of great aspects to it. There's some great thriller moments. There's some great horror moments, even though they may not mesh well together. But overall, this movie feels a bit inconsistent tonally and also quality-wise because the first third and even the second third are so much better than the ending, which I thought was flat. It was too comedic at the end. I think that they really could have gone in a much darker tone, and they didn't do that, and I think that movie suffers for that. Also, the woman who played Gladys did a great job. She was very creepy, very unnerving, but I don't know. There was something about her that, like, I wish we knew more about her and why she was actually doing these things, because I feel like that would make her more evil and make her more of an interesting character. But the fact that that was all kept from us and we had to do our own interpretation and there really isn't anything to pick apart really makes her character suffer a bit. Overall, Weapons was a pretty big disappointment for me, especially because I love Barbarian. I am going to rewatch it soon, so maybe I'll feel a little bit differently about it. But for now, I give this film a 2.5 to 3 stars. I'm going to stick with 3 because that's what I put on my letterbox, because I didn't hate the movie. I just think that it ended up being a bit okay for me. I was a little bit disappointed. There were some really high highs in the movie. Julia Garner's performance and Josh Brolin's were the definite standout, but there are some lows for me as well, and it really comes down to the ending and the twist reveals. So overall, 3 stars. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you watched Weapons, please let me know what you thought about the film. If you haven't seen it already, let me know if you're still excited to watch it, or if you're even going to watch it. What did you think about Barbarian as well? Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.